Hi, I'm Leo, 29, and last month my boss told me I should learn responsibility, 5 minutes before I exposed that he'd been faking his entire MBA and stealing from the company fund. Now I'm jobless, famous in the worst way possible, and apparently under investigation. Yeah. Fun times. It all started on a Thursday. The kind of Thursday where your coffee tastes burnt, your inbox is screaming, and you can already feel the universe setting you up for something stupid. I worked at a small marketing agency downtown. Worked, past tense, where the vibe was half startup energy, half cult worship for our boss, Grant. He was the kind of guy who called himself a visionary, without irony. Gelled hair, expensive watches, motivational quotes printed on his office glass walls. The kind of man who says, "We're a family here," right before firing someone's cousin. Grant loved to remind everyone that he built this company from scratch after getting his MBA from Wharton. He said it so often we joked he should get it tattooed. But no one really questioned him. He was charming, loud, and rich. The perfect trifecta of corporate delusion. Then came the meeting. Full staff, everyone dressed up because Grant said we'd have a special announcement. He strutted in with his usual movie star smirk and started talking about growth, trust, and loyalty. Typical buzzword salad. Then he looked right at me. "Leo," he said, loud enough for the interns to hear, "you've got potential, kid. But you need to take notes from real leaders. You can't keep depending on others to cover for you. Learn some accountability." And just like that, the room went silent. Because everyone in that room, every single person, knew what I'd been covering for. They just didn't know how much. See, for the last 6 months, I'd been fixing Grant's errors. Adjusting numbers, cleaning up invoices, balancing client budgets that mysteriously didn't add up. I thought I was protecting the company. Turns out, I was covering up embezzlement, his. When he threw that little speech at me, something inside just snapped. The hypocrisy, the smugness, the way people nodded like he was Moses on Mount PowerPoint. I didn't plan it. I didn't even think. I just said, "Yeah, Grant, great advice. Maybe you can give me notes from that Wharton MBA you never earned." You could have heard a pen drop. His smile froze. He blinked once, twice, the processing face, while the team started shifting in their seats. I kept going, because apparently I'd decided that career suicide was my new hobby. I mean, I'd love to know how you learned responsibility while funneling money from the operations budget to your consulting fund. Did they teach that in fake Wharton? Gasps. Literal gasps. Someone dropped their latte. Grant's voice dropped an octave. "Watch yourself, Leo." "Sure," I said. "You watched the audit folder I just sent to HR." And that's when his world started burning. The thing about nuking your career in real time is that the explosion happens fast, but the fallout takes its sweet time. The moment the words left my mouth, Grant's face went from tan confidence to the color of undercooked chicken. HR's intern, yes, intern, looked like she was witnessing a live execution. And everyone else just stared, trying to figure out whether to laugh, faint, or start recording. "Leo," Grant finally said, his voice tight like he was chewing glass. "Why don't we step into my office?" "Sure," I said. "I'll bring the receipts." We walked through the glass doors into his oversized corner office, his command center, as he once called it. The second the door closed, his voice dropped the fake charm. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "Being accountable," I said. "Isn't that what you wanted?" He slammed his hand on the desk. "You're finished here." "Oh, definitely," I said. "But so are you." I pulled out my phone, scrolled to an email draft I'd been holding onto for weeks, and hit send. The subject line was short, for HR and accounting, misallocated funds. Inside were 6 spreadsheets, 3 signed invoices, and 1 little PDF from the Wharton Registrar's office confirming no one named Grant Mason had ever enrolled. Grant's phone buzzed almost instantly. He glanced at the screen, eyes widening. "You didn't." Oh, I did. He looked like he wanted to lunge across the desk. Instead, he leaned back, exhaled hard through his nose, and said, "You're not walking out of this clean, Leo. You think you're the hero? You're the fool who's been editing those invoices. You're in them, too." And that's when my stomach dropped. Because he wasn't entirely wrong. I had been adjusting numbers, his numbers, but the paper trail didn't care about intent. I might have just implicated myself in his little con. The next few hours were chaos. HR pulled me into a side room. IT locked me out of my account. Security asked for my badge. Someone in accounting looked like she was about to cry. I just sat there, calm on the outside, dying inside. By 5 p.m., I was officially suspended pending investigation. Translation: unemployed until proven innocent. Grant, meanwhile, held a press statement on Slack saying there had been a misunderstanding, and that he was committed to transparency. The man could spin a fire into a light show. That night, my inbox flooded. Anonymous messages, coworkers whispering support, others asking if I'd really tried to ruin the company. I didn't answer any of them. I just poured a drink, opened my laptop, and started pulling every backup I had. Because if Grant thought I was done, he hadn't seen what I kept off the company's servers. By Monday morning, the storm had gone public. I woke up to 32 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and 1 text from my former coworker that just said, "Dude, you're on LinkedIn News." Sure enough, there it was. Marketing CEO under fire after former employee leaks financial misconduct files. And right under it, my name, misspelled but still recognizable. I wasn't anonymous anymore. Turns out, HR didn't keep things quiet. Someone leaked my email, and the documents spread faster than Grant's hair gel. The company's Slack was apparently on fire. Half the staff quit before noon, the other half were being interrogated. But that was just the beginning. Around 11 a.m., I got a call from a private number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Leo," Grant's voice said, low and calm, the kind of calm that sounds like it's holding a knife. "We need to talk." "Pretty sure we passed that point," I said. "You think you're clean?" he said. "Every adjustment you made, every favor you did for me, guess what? They're in the books under your login. You're the one who processed them." I didn't answer. He wasn't lying. I had processed them. I just didn't know what I was processing. Then he said, "I can make this disappear, for both of us. But you're going to issue a public statement saying you misunderstood. You'll say the documents were incomplete. Do that, and this all goes away. Or?" I asked. "Or you'll go down with me." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone still in hand, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. The bastard had set me up perfectly. He'd built the trap months ago, made me the guy who touched the books, sent the reports, made the edits. All he had to do now was flip the narrative. By evening, he did exactly that. A company insider, him, obviously, leaked a news story claiming a disgruntled former employee fabricated evidence during a data error cleanup. My DMs exploded. Old coworkers texted me like I'd committed corporate arson. So yeah? That was my Monday. Fired, framed, and trending. But the thing about being underestimated is, it makes people sloppy. See, Grant thought he deleted everything when he cut me off the system. He didn't realize I'd already mirrored the company drive weeks ago onto a private cloud, one that recorded metadata, timestamps, and the original signatures attached to every transfer. I hadn't just backed up his mess. I'd built a digital time bomb. And that night, I decided to light the fuse. People always make drama sound cleaner than it actually is. There are no cinematic montages, just a lot of paperwork, bad coffee, and a crushing sense that everyone you thought was neutral has an opinion and a phone. The night I decided to light the fuse, I didn't picture myself as some Avenger. I pictured a guy in sweatpants trying not to hyperventilate while clicking upload. First step, make the backup undeniable. I opened each file, one by one, and pulled the metadata like it was evidence in a courtroom drama I never auditioned for. Timestamps, original author IDs, IP addresses, server logs, the little digital fingerprints that screamed, "This is what really happened." I compiled a narrative, dates, amounts, accounts, the path money took through ghost vendors and then into grants. Consulting fund. I even had a laughable invoice from Mason Advisory, with a logo so bad it looked like it had been made in paint. It took everything in me not to send it out with a gift that said mic drop. Next step, allies. I wasn't a lone vigilante with a keyboard. I had people who still believed I wasn't a lunatic. A couple of directors who'd been quietly suspicious reached out after the LinkedIn smear. One of them, Sarah, who ran client services and had an unnervingly accurate memory for dates, met me for coffee in a windowless shop and asked to see everything. She didn't gasp, she read, slow and steady, like someone absorbing scientific data. When she looked up, I recognized the same moment I'd seen in my dad once, a man realizing the rules he trusted were fake. "Okay," she said. "We do this clean. No theatrics, no leaks. Legal, HR, auditors, proper channels. You didn't want chaos, Leo. You wanted the truth. We give them the truth." It was the most adult sentence I'd heard in 2 weeks, and it felt like wearing shoes after walking barefoot on broken glass. We called in an external auditor with a reputation for not being impressed. Because Grant had friends in high places, I didn't want this to go to the same law firm that did his taxes and his PR crisis management. We hired someone cold and blunt who liked numbers more than people. They came in with binders and an attitude and asked for things I didn't know existed: server snapshots, transaction chains, vendor records. I gave them everything. I watched them work like a heart surgeon watching an ECG, clinical, meticulous, terrifyingly precise. Meanwhile, Grant wasn't idle. His response was predictably theatrical: a glossy email to clients about an internal review, and a 2-paragraph LinkedIn post about disappointment in an employee's personal vendetta. He put up a wall of charm and denials. But charm doesn't purchase credibility when the auditor is knocking at the door. He got nastier, though. Real nastier. One morning I woke up to more than just "we're investigating" emails. My personal accounts showed failed login attempts from locations Grant frequently visited on his private jet. My phone buzzed with screenshots of supposedly private chats between me and clients, doctored to look like coercion. Someone had even set up a burner number and called my mom, leaving a voicemail accusing me of forging documents for attention. It wasn't elegant. It was sinister and graceless, the kind of thing you do when you think you're unbeatable. There's a particular kind of privacy invasion that lands like a physical shove. When my mother called, voice small and shaking, asking if any of it could be true, I realized the cost was more than my career. It hit my parents, and that stung in a way the LinkedIn posts never did. I tried to sound steady. "I've done nothing wrong," I told her. "We've got everything." "I'm sorry you had to hear that." It felt like saying sorry too often, the adult version of hugging someone and realizing the bones are still splintered underneath. Grant escalated further, this time hitting my new employer. He emailed the CEO directly, a polished, venomous letter implying I'd falsified documents and suggesting an internal security review. The CEO, a man who liked golf and feared scandal, did the only thing he thought sensible. He froze my onboarding process until the audit cleared me. I was offered a full-time job and immediately put on pause. It was an ironic twist. I'd been suspended from the place that fired me and stalled from the place that might have saved me. It was like being in 2 parallel universes where everyone was waiting for one of them to be true. But the auditors were thorough. They traced payments through shell accounts and identified duplicate invoices that mysteriously showed up whenever Grant had a flashy networking event. They matched an IP address to his office for a transfer that was supposed to go to a creative vendor. They subpoenaed Mason Advisory's bank records and found they were as empty as the logo. The proof smelled less like drama and more like inevitability. And then, one late Tuesday night, while I was consoling myself with terrible takeout and thinking about quitting journalism, Because some childhood dream dies at least once in your 20s, Sarah texted me, they have him. He's been called in. They're freezing his accounts. I read it 3 times, felt a breath leave me that I didn't know I'd been holding, and walked straight to the window like a man waiting for applause that never came. It helped for a minute. But redemption is not a fever you catch and then recover from. It's a cold, slow burn. Grant's lawyer hit back with threats, defamation, breach of confidentiality, misuse of proprietary information. The letters were long and lawyerly, heavy with ominous language, and they landed in my inbox like anvils. They asked for records, made insinuations about my motives, and demanded I retract everything. The world loves a scandal but hates an untidy ending. So we did something professionals do when they need to translate chaos into safety. We fortified our position. The auditor issued a preliminary report to the board showing irregularities and requested a full legal review. The board convened emergency meetings. Grant was suspended pending investigation. The press smelled blood and circled, but this time, the narrative had weight behind it. Still, there were hits. Old clients didn't return calls. My social feeds were full of thinly veiled jokes about burnout and creative accounting. A friend of mine, someone I'd mentored early in my career, texted that he'd been asked to distance himself because he was connected to me. It was a punch that landed below the belt, collateral damage in someone else's war. At home, things were quieter than the online chaos. My parents tried to be neutral, but you could see the strain in the dinner table conversations, the way my mother cleared plates a little too quickly, the way my father shifted when Grant's name came up. He had been their vision of success in polished shoes, and now our living room felt like a small theater where a very ugly play was being performed. And Grant? He looked smaller. Not broken, never broken, but he was blinking more, making fewer proclamations. In his last staff update, his words were clipped, his promises vague. He still tried to charm investors at networking events, but the magic trick was getting harder to perform when someone kept pulling at the curtain. There were nights I lay awake, reliving the moment I called him out in his office, wondering if I'd done the right thing. There were nights I woke up with adrenaline punching my chest because I'd dreamt my emails were missing. There were days I laughed too loudly with friends as a nervous reflex. The fight was no longer just about the money. It was about whether truth could survive the noise of power and connections. On the brink of all this, I realized something blunt and unromantic. Winning would be antiseptic. It would involve courtrooms, subpoenas, and men in suits moving pieces. It wouldn't be cinematic justice. It would be paperwork and apologies that sounded like press releases. But if it meant the company could breathe again and people who'd been hurt might get a shred of closure, I'd take the dry, methodical victory any day. So I kept sending files. I kept talking to auditors. I kept letting the process do its work while trying not to let Grant's noise get under my skin. The world is messy, and justice is often a series of small, stubborn acts. I was just one of those acts, and I had one thing that Grant didn't: the clear, ugly, unedited truth. When the report dropped, it didn't explode, it leaked, the way oil does before the fire finds it. The auditors released a 42-page summary to the board. Not to the public. Not yet. But in corporate land, that's basically a flare in the sky. Within a day, investors were requesting clarification. Employees were exploring opportunities elsewhere. And Grant's favorite motivational phrase, "Control the narrative," became a joke in every group chat. I didn't celebrate. I'd learned that in the corporate apocalypse, the moment you start dancing, someone drops a new bomb. Sure enough, Grant struck back. 3 days later, I woke up to a cease and desist letter emailed at 5:13 a.m. The kind written by lawyers who use Latin-like punctuation. It accused me of breach of fiduciary duty, defamation, and malicious interference with corporate stability. Which, to translate from legalese, meant, "You made us look bad and we're mad about it." I stared at the email, then poured myself a cup of coffee that tasted like cardboard and decided to call my dad. Not because he could fix it, he was a retired mechanic, but because I needed to hear a voice that wasn't powered by Wi-Fi. He listened quietly while I explained. When I finally stopped, he said, "Sounds like he's scared." "That's your big wisdom drop?" I said. "That's the only one that matters," he replied. "People don't swing this hard unless they're bleeding." And damn it, he was right. That same week, Sarah texted me, "He's out. Board voted to remove him pending full review." It was a single sentence, but it hit harder than any headline could have. Grant had been temporarily relieved of duties, which is corporate speak for exiled but not yet executed. The press hadn't caught it yet, but internally everyone knew. The golden boy had fallen. You'd think that would have felt good. It didn't. It felt quiet. Like standing in the middle of a wreck you helped cause and realizing victory still smells like smoke. But the silence didn't last. That night around 9 p.m., my apartment lights flickered. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something told me to answer. "Leo," a voice said low and calm. "Grant. Congratulations. You think you've won? Pretty sure the scoreboard disagrees." He chuckled, slow, bitter. "You always mistook survival for victory." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll see." Click. I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for the next shoe to drop. And it did, about 40 minutes later. My inbox flooded again, only this time with alerts. Someone had tried accessing my cloud drive. 3 separate attempts from a private VPN. Then, like a final insult, my LinkedIn profile was hit with a wave of fake comments, all suspiciously similar. "Lying won't save you." "Disgruntled ex-employee exposed." "You'll regret this." It wasn't just trolling. It was targeted. Coordinated. And it had Grant's fingerprints all over it. I spent the night locking down everything, passwords, accounts, backups. My apartment felt like a war bunker made of Wi-Fi. By dawn, I was sitting in the dark with a single thought looping in my head: I'd won the battle, but he was trying to scorch the ground. Sarah called around 8 a.m. "Hey," she said, voice low. "Something's happened." "What now?" "They found a second set of books. Hidden accounts. Offshore." I blinked. As in? As in, he's been doing this longer than we thought. Years. Millions. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't over. It had never been just about our office or one company. Grant had built an entire empire of fraud, and I'd only clipped one branch. The fuse I lit months ago? It had finally reached the dynamite. When the news finally broke, it didn't come from me, or Sarah, or even the company. It came from the feds. I was halfway through making breakfast when the headline lit up my phone. "Marketing CEO arrested on multiple counts of wire fraud, forgery, and tax evasion." Grant Mason, once the self-declared visionary of the downtown creative scene, was now a mugshot with perfect hair and hollow eyes. Underneath the article, the first line read, "Authorities credit an internal whistleblower for providing key evidence leading to the arrest." That whistleblower was me. I just stood there in my kitchen, spatula in hand, toast burning, thinking, so this is what justice smells like: charred bread and disbelief. Within hours, my inbox exploded again, but this time, the tone had changed. Former coworkers who ghosted me months ago suddenly remembered my number. "You were right. I always believed in you." "Sure you did." HR sent an apology that sounded like it was written by a lawyer with a thesaurus. "And my new employer?" They unfroze my offer and added the words, "With gratitude for your integrity." I didn't even smile. I just forwarded it to my dad with the message, "Guess the bleeding stopped." He called 5 minutes later, laughing so hard he couldn't finish his coffee. "Told you," he said. "People swing hardest when they're scared." But it wasn't all victory laps. 2 days later, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but some stupid instinct made me press accept. It was Grant. From county jail. "You ruined me," he said, his voice cracking for the first time since I'd known him. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. You think they'll make you a hero? He said. You think anyone actually cares about the truth? I don't, I said. I just care that you can't fake it anymore. He went silent, then laughed once, a dry, hollow sound. You'll see. You'll get your moment, Leo. And it'll feel just as empty. Then the line went dead. And maybe he was right. Because the next few weeks were quieter than I expected. No more chaos, no more panic, just this heavy, echoing calm. The company rebranded, new management took over, Sarah got promoted, and my name quietly disappeared from the press cycle. The internet found a new scandal. They always do. I went back to work, this time with my own boundaries. No family speeches, no late-night guilt trips. I still double-check every line item, every number, not because I don't trust people, but because I learned that blind trust is how you end up cleaning someone else's mess. Sometimes, when I walk past that old office building, I still see the faint reflection of myself in the glass. The version of me who just wanted to do the right thing, who thought honesty would feel heroic. But the truth? It doesn't feel heroic. It feels quiet. Heavy. Real. And yet that's enough. Because for the first time since this whole mess started, I don't need to prove anything. Not to my boss, not to the board, not even to myself. Grant was wrong about one thing. I didn't mistake survival for victory. Survival was the victory. And I earned every damn second of it.